We pick up with a typical afternoon, them sitting back, cruising through space, enjoying some coffee. Yep, we are Starfleet, the big swinging dicks around here. They're delivering some supplies, but the good times of just cruising the highway gets interrupted by a spatial disruption that ends up leaving a planet in front of them. Something that somebody should have noticed by now.
Uhura, notify the Discovery on subspace radio.
Sir, Discovery's all out of mushrooms. Damn it, we'll just have to sort this out for ourselves then. They try to change course, but instead the panel loses power and Sulu vanishes, soon followed by Kirk.
We are orbiting the lone, unrecorded planet in the star desert. For 4 hours, we have made every possible instrument sweep, but Captain Kirk and Helmsman Sulu remain unaccounted for.
We've done all we can be reasonably expected to do, and I'm now moving my stuff into the larger quarters assigned to the captain, where I will finally have room for my KFC collectible mug collection. DeSalle and Bones want to head down and start searching the planet, apparently forgetting, first of all, a planet is a big place to search with a spaceship, and thus gets even harder when your ground surface transport is a pair of boots. Second, there's the issue of the condition of the planet.
No detectable soil or vegetation, extremely hot, toxic atmosphere swept by tornadic storms, continuous volcanic eruptions, deadly to any life form such as we know it without oxygen and life support systems.
I see. Sounds almost as bad as Detroit down there. Yet somehow a message still comes through.
Yep. Hurrah. And I believe it's pronounced tally-ho.
I really don't get this new teen slang they use. One thing this definitely proves is that there's life down there, even if it does think it's at a particularly camp Renaissance festival. So Spock assigns McCoy, DeSalle, and Yeager, the guy who knows that they'll certainly die in the hostile wastes, you're welcome, to go down there. They get life support gear, but that consists solely of a mask, so basically they'll be able to breathe well when their skin begins boiling away. They were supposed to wear suits, actually, but apparently Gene Kuhn thought so little of the ones that we had seen previously, he feared the audience would laugh at them. Well, luckily the suits aren't needed. Everything's just fine in this particular spot. They can even take their masks off. It's just the communicators aren't working.
No response.
Keep trying with yours.
You're not the boss of me. There's no getting a message through, but there is something interesting. An old-fashioned door and an old-fashioned wall, and call me old-fashioned, but maybe we should pay them a visit and ask for an old-fashioned. Inside, it's like a museum for someone who started out trying too hard and in the end didn't try hard enough. There's inexplicably a stuffed salt vampire in there, too. I guess whoever lives here likes hunting and isn't too picky, though I suspect the meat really needed a lot of seasoning. They find Kirk and Sulu in suspended animation, but before they can do anything, someone's playing the harpsichord, whom we will soon learn is General Trelane, retired. He frees Kirk and Sulu, and Kirk naturally wants to know what the hell is his deal here. Trelane doesn't seem like the kind of alien that he's used to dealing with.
Notice the period, Captain. 900 light years from Earth. It's what might be seen through a viewing scope if it were powerful enough.
Ah, yes, I've been looking in on the doings on your lively little Earth.
Seems like somebody had a misunderstanding, otherwise this would place the original series centuries after Voyager even. In either case, he brought them here because he's been studying humanity as a hobby and wanted to deal with some in person, although not for the best of reasons.
I want to learn all about your feelings on war and killing and conquest, that sort of thing. Do you know that you're one of the few predator species that preys even on itself?
Well, I think the Black Widow would have something to say on that topic. Kirk insists that war and violence are not their way, that it's strictly the last resort, although DeSalle going for his phaser probably doesn't help Kirk's case. Trelane keeps messing with him, first about his admiration of Napoleon to DeSalle, bowing to Sulu in a kind of Japanese style, and then marching about while spouting German to Yeager. Lucky thing Uhura isn't down here. I'm not sure we could unsee what he does to her. DeSalle has apparently had enough and pulls the phaser, on stun, but Trelane freezes and takes it away, resetting it to vaporize and using it on one of his stuffed birds.
Oh, how marvelous! this could kill millions.
Yeah, I think it said that in the double-page ad in Phasers and Ammo. Kirk does his best to ignore that and get down to how Trelane is doing what he's doing, which is basically a power to manipulate energy and matter, not just relocating it like the transporter, but switching between them to achieve whatever ends Trelane wants, like building this monument to old-timey by way of the Twilight Zone. While much fun as this is, Kirk isn't interested in staying and doesn't acquiesce to Trelane's objection, so... Oh, a little timely discipline. Spare the poison gas, spoil the child. Back on the Enterprise, Spock tells the log that, yeah, we kind of lost our landing party. But they have diverted power to sensors to locate the anomalous area that Trelane is using at the moment. So he and Scotty hash out the plan. If they find any life forms in there, we'll beam it up and hope that we got lucky. After all, if Kirk is alive, he's almost certainly in the safe zone, so they'd be rescuing him. And if he's not in the safe zone, then he's almost certainly dead, so it won't really matter if they're looking in the wrong place for him. It's not like he'd get any deader. Trelane is spending his time going on more about humanity's history of war in a way that, on the one hand, sounds like an insult, but on the other, sounds like he's actually quite happy thinking about it. It's hard to tell with Trelane. But then it's kind of hard to predict a lunatic waving a gun around, too. Bones says that it's worse than they thought. Trelane doesn't seem like a life form in any sense that they know, so bopping him on the head and running away probably isn't going to work. Still, the fact that he has details wrong means that he's fallible. And Kirk can work with that. If there's a defense that can be penetrated, he can. He's a master of penetration. He tries reason again, hoping that it might work, for once, for the novelty of it. But Trelane's enjoying the company far too much.
There are 400 men and women aboard that ship.
Women? Do you mean that you actually have members of the fairer sex?
Oh boy, we're going to get that Uhura scene after all, aren't we? Luckily, the Enterprise has found them and sends a message that they're getting beamed up, much to Trelane's extreme irritation. Kirk's not taking chances, though, so the moment they're up, he runs to the bridge and tells Scotty to put the pedal all the way to the floor so they can get the hell away from Trelane. That egotistical, long-winded, cabbage-smelling, fashion victim with all the good taste of Hildy Santo Tomas in a room full of mirrors. That hideously misunderstood soul, whose hygiene is without room for complaint. Trelane wants to know who the hell Mr. Spock is, so Spock speaks up and refuses to be cowed by the twerp. But then, all-powerful or no, Trelane is hardly commanding respect, looking like Harry Sullivan on Halloween. So when Kirk won't return them to Gothos, Trelane does it instead. He can be a bit insistent at times, like every single moment of the day. After stopping DeSalle's latest attempt at violence, while unarmed, so DeSalle isn't even thinking things through at this point, Trelane turns to Uhura and Yeoman Ross, whom he brought along as well.
Lieutenant Uhura of Communications.
Ah, a Nubian prize. Taken on one of your raids of conquest, no doubt, Captain?
I knew it was going to be awkward. Spock isn't too pleased with any of this, naturally.
I object to you. I object to intellect without discipline. I object to power without constructive purpose.
That's Spock's version of hitting Trelane across the face with a glove. Well, he does indeed have a constructive use. He can use his power to get Uhura to play the harpsichord. I guess someone's feeling pretty foolish right about now. Bones comes over to mention how awful this banquet is. Even the liquor is awful. Won't stop him from drinking it, of course, but it's still bad. The trio speculate on the technology that is helping Trelane, since, clearly, this is not a man who could have done all of this with his own intellect. And after all, take a clueless high school student and drop them in the Middle Ages, and their ability to call up music with a smartphone may make them seem incredibly powerful, but a 5-minute conversation will make even them realize they're dealing with a moron. They speculate that there's a machine behind the mirror, and so they come up with a plan.
If it's fighting that you want, you may have it.
And that's Kirk's version of hitting Trelane across the face with a glove. No room for metaphors there. This, of course, is now a matter of honor.
A match set. Just like the pair that slew your heroic Alexander Hamilton.
Yes, I know. I love the musical. Trelane demands first shot as the wronged party, but fortunately fires it into the ceiling, leaving Kirk alive and well to fire into the mirror. And sure enough, that housed the technology Trelane was using, allowing them to beam away, although not before Trelane rants about them being dead men. He can probably do it, so they get the duck out of Fodge, speeding away from Gothos, only to soon find that it's right in front of them. And after changing course, Gothos, again, and again. I mean, I've heard all roads lead to Rome, but this is ridiculous. Kirk figures Trelane wants him for what happened, so he beams down alone to Gothos, where Trelane has set up an English court for his trial. Not quite the same without a midget with a cowbell, though, but it's just as much of a kangaroo court, and Kirk refuses to play along. He rants against Trelane's unconscionable behavior to other living beings.
You will hang by the neck, Captain, until you are dead, dead, dead.
I guess he's found a way around the living qualifier there. Lawyers always find the loophole. Trelane is delighted about his chance to actually experience true anger, but apparently not enough to just leave aside the whole execution thing. But when he laments how easy this all was, Kirk points out that his technology has left Trelane an impulsive fool. It makes sense. If there are never any consequences for not thinking, why bother thinking? Caution is what prompts careful consideration, along with the experience of failure, whatever form it might wind up taking, from a mere unimportant loss to permanent physical harm. If you're always prevented from having your choices lead to bad results, you'll never think about your choices. You'll just belch them out like the impulsive child that you are. So to save his neck, Kirk suggests that rather than going with a hanging, why not have Trelane try to hunt him down in return for letting the Enterprise go? But it sounds like it was all just a trick so Trelane can get the jump on Kirk, because while he's trying to call the Enterprise, Trelane, well, jumps him. Kirk disarms him, but Trelane, of course, cannot be harmed, and soon uses his power to effectively cage Kirk so Trelane can finally get the kill. He's also going back on his word, intending to hunt down all the other members of the crew, so Kirk refuses to play along anymore. No, now you don't get to kill me. See how you like that? As Trelane rants, a pair of voices are heard, which turns out to be his parents. They're stepping in because Trelane's misbehavior has gone on long enough. He's not learning anything, and it's probably time anyway for him to wash up and eat his ammonium crystals or whatever. They apologize to Kirk for Trelane's actions and assure him they wouldn't have let it get this far if they had known that Trelane had such great power compared to them. They didn't realize the Enterprise crew would just be helpless playthings. But it was an honest mistake. So Kirk just heads back to the Enterprise and on their way. Although not before teasing Spock about typical mischievous little boy behavior that Spock certainly never did. Shit just rolls downhill. The post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to DeSalle for being the one with least reason to get pissed off and nevertheless getting pissed off. We have an ancient Chinese secret, huh? For describing the dueling pistols as ancient. Final score for the Squire of Gothos is 8 out of 10, but I admit this is a polarizing episode. Trelane is a proto-Q, as is well noted. In fact, there's a much-beloved book called Q-Squared which explores Trelane as a member of the Q, and the story puts this proto-Q to good use. While I previously said that Q was at his best when he was, in a way, pushing humanity forward, this imp character of Trelane works very well to me. Some of it might seem a bit repetitive, and it does have echoes of Charlie X to be sure, but I for one find this to be the superior outing. Trelane is a memorable threat that doesn't actually kill or even really hurt anyone. Maybe not for lack of trying, but still the crew suffers nothing more in the end than a delay and a bit of a humiliation. It shows that you don't actually have to inflict permanent harm to your characters to show a threat or to make an interesting villain.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
Oh, but you said I could. You promised. I'd never have any fun.